Hey, what's up guys? This is Nick at Stridewise.com. Today I am taking a look at the very rugged but very lightweight American Heritage mock toe boot from Thorogood. So Thorogood work boots is one of these really old American boot companies. It was founded all the way back in 1892. Today they're owned by Weinbrenner Shoe Company and they're headquartered in Merrill, Wisconsin. One thing that's pretty interesting about this company is that they're entirely employee owned, which is pretty cool. And most of the boots are made in America. Not all of them, but it's like about 65% of them are made at one of their two union factories in Wisconsin. Now I have tried out their Dodgeville boot, the 1892 Dodgeville boot before, which is sort of like trying to imitate the Red Wing Iron Ranger. You can check out that review right there. But this one is far and away their most popular, most famous shoe. So what makes it so popular? Let's take a closer look. So as you might be able to see, I've been wearing these for a little while, but first I want to talk about like the first glance, the first impressions before I get into how the boots have worn over time. So this is the mock toe boot. A lot of the versions are available in an 8-inch shaft, but this is the 6-inch shaft, which is like sort of more classic. That's the normal height that you get with boots. And they're real work boots, you know? I mean, when I was in college, I did spend a lot of time working in warehouses and dodging forklifts and things like that, and it wasn't uncommon to see good hardy boots like this. Today, of course, I work in New York City. I spend most of my time running around Manhattan, and like I need these for like enduring New York snowstorms and things like that. I'm not going to pretend that I'm a lineman or anything like that, but it is nonetheless true that these are really popular, both among like fashionistas that you might find here in New York, as well as on the floor of warehouses. Like these shoes are really quite durable. The sole here can withstand a ton of electric shocks, and there's a few other touches like that that I'm going to get into later in this review. But the most notable thing probably when you look at this, it's got to be this mock toe stitching here, which is short for moccasin toe, by the way, because it has a lot of similarities with the moccasins worn by early Native Americans. There's a lot of stitching on the side as well. It's another really notable thing about this boot. There's a way more stitching than you would normally see in a fashion-focused boot, which again imparts this air of durability and ruggedness. This is oil tanned leather. This is the tobacco color, which is far and away the most popular version of the boot. And you got a 360-degree Goodyear welt. There are a lot of touches here that are pretty surprising for a boot as inexpensive as this, that I'm going to get into later. Like it's very lightweight. And for a little while, I was sure that this must not have a shank because like Red Wing's mock toe boots do not have a shank. But this does have a fiberglass shank. So with the shank and the Goodyear welt and the price, I got to say it's a pretty good option for durability, and it's a pretty good for almost any price range as well. So you can get these boots in black and in Crazy Horse leather. If you like the sound of Crazy Horse leather, you should check out my review of Chippewa's service boot right there. But this color is tobacco. This is far and away the most popular version of this boot, and this is oil tanned leather. So when it comes to leather, there are a lot of ways to tan it. Usually you'll hear about vegetable tanning or chrome tanning, or maybe combination tanning, which is what Chrome XL leather is. It's both vegetable tanned and chrome tanned. This is oil tanned leather, and probably one of the most famous oil tanned leathers is the one used by Red Wing on their Iron Rangers. Typically, it happens after the leather has been vegetable tanned, and then they do some oil tanning after that. The type of oil varies a lot. Like some people use castor oil, some use pine oil, some even use fish oil on the leather. And an upside with oil tanned leather is that it's a bit more water resistant than just regular vegetable tanned leather, and it doesn't scratch as easily as other leathers either. Particularly Chrome XL, which everyone loves, but it does scratch really easily. On the other hand, oil tanned leather doesn't have quite as much color depth as chrome tanned leather, so you know, it depends on what you like. Now this leather here, I do have to point out that it has wrinkled a bit around here, and it didn't wrinkle like symmetrically either. So it's not quite the same on the other boot. It has aged, it's getting a little bit loose, grainy, and it did so pretty quickly as well. That's worth pointing out if that's important to you. And finally, this leather does not need quite as much conditioning as a lot of other leathers because it's got a lot of oil in it already, but there are some things to keep in mind with leather care. So when it comes to taking care of these boots, Thorogood really just recommends two products, and they both kind of reflect the fact that they intend you to kick the crap out of these boots. The first is KG's Boot Guard, and that's just something you put over the toe here, which helps to develop a nice thick layer around the toe to protect it from, you know, all the stuff you're going to be kicking the boot against. That's made from a mixture of polyurethane and xylene. And some people like to put it on the stitches as well to help improve the water resistance. But for that, a lot of people also recommend KG's Extreme All-Purpose Leather Guard. And despite how dramatic that name sounds, it really is more meant to keep the leather relatively supple and moist. It's a leather conditioner, although it also does It also does provide quite a lot of water resistance as well. That one's made from natural oil suspended in beeswax and propolis. And again, it's pretty heavy duty. You know, the boot's going to be able to take a lot of damage if you put it onto it. If you are interested in a more soft and supple leather, as opposed to putting layers and layers on top to protect it against the elements, you could use Venetian shoe cream. I acknowledge it's a bit strange to use something as fancy as Venetian shoe cream on a boot like this, but you definitely can. It's a great product. It works on a lot of different types of leathers. So that's how you take care of the leather. As for the soles, as you can see, they get pretty dirty pretty quickly, but if you want to keep those clean, you just need to use Mr. Clean's magic erasers, and that's going to keep them pretty bright white. All right, so this sole, this is Thorogood's exclusive oil and slip resistant polyurethane max wear wedge outsole. So traditionally, they used a Christie Vibram sole that was made of blown rubber. Thorogood introduced that into their shoe line in 1964, but they say they decided to design their own rubber because they didn't like that the Vibram sole wore down in less than a year, for most people who used it as like daily work boots. So this is a kind of polyurethane. They estimate that it lasts about 25% longer than Vibram. And the sole is indeed very lightweight, partly because of this polyurethane sole, but also because it has a rubber midsole and the insole is Poron. It's a Poron 4000 comfort cushion. That's a material that's used in a bunch of brands like Adidas and Nike. Thursday Boots also has it in some of their models, as well as some other brands. The idea with Poron is that it provides cushioning with what they call air-permeable open cells that resist moisture and help with shock absorption as well. And added to that shock absorption, there's this insert that Thorogood calls their dual density ultimate shock absorption insert. Now this also has a fiberglass shank and a Goodyear welt running around the outside. So that means there's a layer between the upper and the sole that the stitching runs through, which means it's a lot easier to re-sole than cemented soles or Blake stitches, and it helps with that water resistance as well. So finally, keeping true to its work boot roots, I want to point out that these soles are capable of, quote, withstanding an application of 18,000 volts at 60 Hertz for 1 minute with no current flow or leakage current in excess of 1.0 milliamperes under dry conditions. I can't pretend I know exactly what that means. It's obviously meant to target people who work closely with electricity. But hey, even if you don't, maybe you'll feel a tiny bit more secure wearing these in a thunderstorm. So as for the fit and sizing, right now, and this can change at any time, but the sizes are available from sizes 5 through 15, and the widths are in B and D and double E. So that's gonna be pretty good news for people with varying widths. I got these in a D because my foot is considered a normal width, and some people consider them a little bit snug for a D, but I thought they were totally fine. I didn't have any issues, but it is worth pointing out if your feet are on the wider side of a D, you might be happier getting the double E width. Now, as far as wearing these in, I gotta say, I didn't have any wearing at all. Like, the leather isn't super crazy thick. It's also quite soft. And on top of that, it's not a particularly heavy boot. It wasn't very difficult to wear at all, which is a real pro. I mean, they're not particularly expensive boots, so I wasn't expecting it to be really tough to wear in. Again, it's not the thickest leather in the world. But honestly, walking around in these, they're so lightweight. It's honestly a lot like wearing a sneaker, which you gotta say is a pro. I can't say that I felt like I was really... A lot of people, when they wear boots, they like to sort of clump around with them. They like a relatively heavy boot. They like something with a good amount of weight to it. And that's not really the case here, but if you're someone who is used to sneakers and likes to wear boots now and then, this is definitely gonna be a pretty good pick for you. So as far as the price goes, I know I keep hyping up how inexpensive these boots are. A pair of these on Thorogood's website or on Amazon are gonna run you about $185. And on Amazon, they often dip below that as well. So that's very inexpensive for a pair of boots. I mean, the Moc toes from Red Wing are like almost $100 more expensive, and they have fewer features, to be honest. I mean, to be fair, Red Wing's Moc toes do have like leather midsoles and leather insoles. This does not have a leather midsole or a leather insole, which definitely partly at least explains the fact that it's like so inexpensive. But I mean, look, it does have a shank. It does have like very good traction on the sole, and it's lined with cotton. So for the money, yeah, I was pretty impressed with what you get here. All right, so why should you get a pair of Thorogood Moc toes? It's a very inexpensive shoe. I keep saying that, but that is a star feature of this shoe. Super lightweight. If you like prefer sneakers to boots, this is a nice midway point between sneakers and boots, at least in that regard as well. I'm a big fan of oil tanned leather. You don't see it very often, but it has a lot of really redeeming qualities. Pretty easy to take care of as well, which is something that's really important for like these boots because people don't really want to baby these sorts of work boots. The sole has really good traction, super durable. As I mentioned, this is like the second generation of this boot's sole. Really holds up to damage a lot. And that's just sort of true for the whole boot itself. Relatively easy to re-sole as well as a Goodyear welt. And All of this is to say that this is not a fake work boot. Like, there are a lot of companies out there that like to call themselves work boots, but actually you're not really going to be able to wear these around a warehouse. The Thorogood Moc, on the other hand, it really is very popular for people who do need work boots. Very popular among linemen, electricians, folks who work in warehouses. And when you look at it through that lens, they have really pulled off a feat here that's pretty impressive as far as versatility goes. When you see the sorts of work boots that are really deliberately targeted to folks who work in like warehouses and factories and so on, I gotta say, they aren't always as fashionable as this boot. Like, this is a pair of boots that you can wear to work in that regard, and you can wear them out with jeans and a t-shirt. You can maybe wear it with a button down. I mean, you definitely can't wear it with a suit or slacks or anything like that. But for a shoe that's as functional as this, I think it's pretty versatile as well. There are a few things you might not be quite so crazy about with these shoes. Obviously, they're not very formal. That's not going to be a big surprise, so I can't act like that's a really big con. But yeah, you definitely can't wear this with a suit or slacks or anything like that. This happened during this review. The shoelaces come undone very easily if you don't double knot them, so that's also worth pointing out. They say the toe also is pretty vulnerable to accruing damage when you actually wear these as work boots, but of course that's what the boot guard is for, that I mentioned in the leather care section, but that is also worth emphasizing. Another thing I wanted to say, I wasn't that crazy about the flag and the brand here. I have nothing against the American flag, but you know, I just prefer like a sort of more simple look to my boots, so it's also worth pointing out. The leather, it aged a little bit. I have to say it got a bit loose, grainy, and a bit wrinkly around here on the inside of the left boot, and it didn't happen on the right boot either. So now I have asymmetrical boots. You might not care about that, but you know, that might be a bit indicative of the leather quality if that's important to you. And then finally, I wanted to mention this sole. As I mentioned, this is the second generation of this particular sole. So they used to have a Christie Vibram sole, and they felt that it wore down pretty easily. And there are some complaints out there that this new sole made of polyurethane is not quite as soft as the Vibram sole. So for folks that are on their feet all day in these boots, there are some complaints that it can be a little bit harder on the knees and the hips. That's obviously very subjective. It depends on the quality of your own knees and hips and how old you are as well. But there are some complaints out there that this can cause a bit more knee pain than the old version. So that's just worth pointing out. All right, those are my thoughts on the Thorogood Moc. If you want to read more of my thoughts about what it was like to wear these in, see some pictures, stuff like that, just Google the full written review. Just write Stridewise and Thorogood Moc, and make sure you subscribe because I got a ton more boot reviews coming up.